my name is JD, and I'm back again with another top producer interview. I'm filling in for Dave while he's out and hopefully providing you guys with some valuable content. Today, I have my friend of the business, Mr. Jerry Reinhardt. He's been with us. I'll let him fill in those details, but he is a telesales agent with us. And today, I want to pick his brain to figure out he did a little bit of time in face-to-face. He's done some time in telesales, and he's done some time with our new Alpha Lead program. So we're going to speak to Jerry today, get some information about himself. Jerry, thank you for joining us, my friend.
Thank you so much, JD. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you here. So again, the reason why we've invited Jerry here on the show today is because he is one of our top producers. He's hit the board a number of times as far as being one of our top producers for the week, et cetera. And so we just like to share the experience that our agents have within our agency that'll hopefully guide somebody like yourself. If you're somebody who's either A, thinking about getting into the business of insurance sales, final expense, or B, maybe you're already there and you're kind of struggling or looking for ways to improve your process. That's exactly what we're going to cover here today with Jerry. So Jerry, to get us started, can you tell us a little bit about your background, what you did prior to working with the Ford Insurance Group, and how you got here?
Okay, very good. Yeah, I actually had my own business for 40 years, maintenance contracting with the major corporations in the Midwest, mainly in Nebraska and Colorado. When COVID hit, kind of shut everything down because of the circumstances. And I enjoyed being retired for a couple of years, but then I just missed the activity and being able to go out and kill something and drag it home. That's what it was all about. And so getting into the insurance business gave me that opportunity that I wanted to follow through on.
Okay, perfect. And when you were going through the process of deciding on which of the products in insurance to sell, I mean, there's obviously a lot of choices out there going into property and casualty, life insurance, health insurance. Like, what made you make the decision specifically on final expense? And then more importantly, what made you decide to join Ford Insurance Group as opposed to other options?
Well, at first I was actually recruited by a MMM agency, and I was with them for about a month. And then I could see that that wasn't a good fit for me personally. And I talked to a friend that I knew in the insurance business, and he really recommended final expense just because there's so many thousands and thousands of baby boomers that are getting to that age where perhaps their term or their whole life, they weren't able to keep it going. So they went ahead and pursued some final expense coverage. And actually, that really piqued my interest. So I did a lot of research and found out, as an independent agent working under another agency, I would be able to do that. And that's what David Duford's agency afforded me, being able to go in as an independent, but work within the agency with all the support and encouragement and the training. It's been invaluable for me.
Got it. Beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I got to say, your story is somewhat similar to mine. As a matter of fact, before joining with the Ford Insurance Group, I had originally went to a big MLM agency. And what was funny was I've kind of gotten invited there from like a friend of a friend. And then I get inside the building and realize I recognize a couple of my family members who it turns out they're like some of the top agents in the city of San Antonio within that agency. And so it kind of almost seemed like serendipitous at that time, like, man, maybe this is where I was intended to be, right? They had actually sold policies to my dad, which was funny. And then my dad's like, hey, you need to talk to him about coming to work for you guys. And, not to say anything wrong with that company or companies like them, but I'll just say it just wasn't the right fit for me, right? There were certain things about the MLM that just didn't work well for me. Number one was that the high emphasis on recruiting. And then number two was like the going after your warm market, the people that bothering your friends and family. Like, I just wasn't about that. I was like, no. I've done enough businesses in the past. I don't want to bother people about this, another business, right? And so I just want to go talk to new people. I want to go learn the craft of selling insurance. I'd rather go cold canvas a neighborhood than bother people that I know, right? And so
Exactly.
I kind of from a similar situation from you. So tell us then, once you got into the Ford Insurance Group, describe that kind of process, where you started and where you're at today.
Okay. Well, I started out, I really felt that face-to-face would be my strength just because of my years of building up my business. It was all face-to-face. with regional managers and corporate executives. So I felt that I could present myself in such a way as to face would be my strong suit. But what I found out is I was spending hours every day driving. I live about an hour north of Denver. So I was driving all over northern Colorado, but I always end up in Denver, and the traffic and the hubbub and everything. I just wasn't able to close as many deals as what I could doing telesales. And that's why after about 2 months, I recognized that I could perhaps make that transformation over, even though, as you can tell, I'm a little on the older side. And I thought, well, maybe I can do it. And it was such a breath of fresh air having the training that David DeFord has put into the agency. And then, of course, with the trainers that he's brought on board, has really covered all the training and all the necessities of really how to be successful in the industry for me.
Got it. And a fun fact, neither one of us knew this prior to starting this interview, but we're both evidently located in Colorado.
Yeah, I think you moved into Colorado Springs. I think I talked to you just briefly months ago, and we were going to get together, and it just hasn't worked out. Been busy working.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm down in the Springs, so on the other side of Denver, right? And then, yeah, you did cover a couple interesting things there as far as the program goes. Can you tell us, when people watch this information, that, a lot of them have that question inside themselves, like, which of these strategies to pick, as far as telesales or face-to-face, because to be honest, a lot of people can't afford having a second shot, right? As far as navigating like yourself did, making a transition, they've only got one shot in order to be successful because of their resources, money, whatever it may be, right? And so maybe can you speak to that person who might be on the fence or maybe leaning one direction or the other on how to make that decision?
Yeah, I appreciate that in some parts of the country. In fact, I know a producer with another agency, and he's in a demographic area. It's not as many people, but it's just the right number of people without all the traffic and population and everything, to where when he sets his appointments for the day, he knows people are going to be home and he can go to them and he relates to them. He's about my age and so forth. His particular situation works for him in that area. So you really want to take a look at everything that's going on in your particular area to make sure you have enough leads in that area, but at the same time that you're not going to spend your day sitting in traffic and just not being productive. So on the other flip side of that, with the new Alpha Leads program that David DeFord has brought on, I'm actually licensed in 30 states, and I'm bringing on some more states. So I'm getting leads in every week with high intent leads, and it's being generated by someone that is an expert in marketing and sales, that has his own agency and knows what works. His name's Oscar Gonzalez, and he is putting his heart and soul into this program, along with David and along with our trainer, Tim Hildebrand. And what it allows us to do is to be able to purchase leads at wholesale cost. And of course, as we know, leads is the main expense that we have as agents. And sometimes it washes out a lot of good agents just because they can't afford to continue to buy leads. With this program, we get very specific training. Calls are recorded. In my particular case, working with Tim, we're in small groups. Each one of us records calls, and then in a group setting, we go through that particular call and everybody gives some input, but the training that Tim gives in specifically really makes the difference in being successful or not.
Got it. Yeah, that's some good information that you shared there. And then one of the things that a little nugget that you kind of slipped through there was referring to your age in the business. And, some people who maybe they've already, retired from a prior career, maybe similar to your situation. I've always thought of it as somebody probably in that age range. Look, let's be honest, like for Final Expense, our target market is the senior market, people age 50 years and up, right? Do you feel like that has been any sort of advantage to you? Has it played against you, or kind of what are your thoughts on that for folks that are in a similar situation as you?
That's a great question, JD. Appreciate that. At first, and I still do, I feel that that's a strength just because I can get on a common ground. However, in my particular situation, as you can tell, I like to talk. And so I have to really stay on track of getting to the point, especially on telesales. You only get one 30-second shot to really connect with people. It's not like you can build rapport for 10 minutes and then start presenting your information with them. They want you to get to the point, get on the phone, make the point. What I do is I make sure after I make the sale in the cool down period, that's when I build more rapport with them to help them to see that I'm going to take care of them on into the future. Because if I talk to them about where they're from or all their grandkids, all I want to do is talk about my own family, my own grandkids, my own kids, right? And so it takes too much time and not getting to the point. So that's one of the things that has made me more successful than anything else, is realizing I need to shut up more and listen more. And by doing that, it helps me to close sales faster and to move on to the next client.
Yeah, and what you just said there just kind of reminded me of an old adage that I've heard before, and I'm sure you're smiling because you're thinking of the same thing. There's a reason why we have two ears and one mouth, right? You were thinking the same exact thing. So, all right, well, good. What I'd like to do now at this point is let's circle back to you had kind of alluded to the Alpha Lead program. So, for folks that are new, not in the business, not in the industry, the way that Final Expense works for the most part, people are purchasing leads in order to have people to talk to in order to make sales. That's kind of how the process works. Now, whether you're a telesales agent or face-to-face agent like myself, you have different choices as far as how you're going to source those leads. Now, for most people, they're going out to purchase those leads because you can kind of generate or purchase them and have a consistent flow of people to talk to, as opposed to some of the network marketing or other strategies that some people would prefer to do, which again, that's an option. But what we recommend is a lead strategy, just to get you in front of enough people to sell consistently, right? Because the name of the game and being an entrepreneur and generating your own business is trying to generate revenue on a consistent, predictable basis, right? And so again, in order to do that, we're buying leads. Now, for telesales, different than face-to-face. And what I told Jerry before the call, I know enough to be dangerous, which is kind of funny. I'm not a telesales agent. I don't have any experience, but what I understand of it is that telesales leads on average, if you're going to go buy them from a third-party vendor, I want to say they range somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 to $20. Does that sound about right per lead?
Well, you're doing pretty good if you can get them for 10. The ones that are that cheap, usually they might have even been resold at that price. Okay. And so most of them are in the $14 to $20 range. Okay. And so your return on your investment has to be a lot greater to be able to cover the cost of those leads. Say if you're buying 100 or 150 leads each week, man, you've got to really be pushing constantly, working a lot of hours and so forth. Okay. Now, with the Alpha leads, what's so nice about those are high intent, and yet the people that put in this information were able to call them within 5 minutes, or that's our goal, is to call these individuals in that first 5 minutes. It's been proven that if we're able to reach them in that time period, the closing rate jumps up exponentially to over 80%. And that's what the telesales enables us to do. But there again, some of those leads that are super expensive actually have been washed through the machine 2 or 3 times. And the lead vendors, some of them are reputable, some of them are really good, but some are out there that they don't have any conscience. They're just out there looking to make money. So I really, really appreciate what David and Tim and everybody, including yourself behind the scenes, are doing to make this successful in our agency.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. And again, you keep bringing up really good talking points. So for people who don't know, whenever you're going out there and buying these leads, so we've got a handful of third-party vendors that we've kind of gone through the vetting process as far as, I mean, if you didn't already know this, there are a ton of lead vendors out there available for people to buy leads from. Only a handful of them have really been able to prove to be consistently successful on a consistent basis, right? Over a track period of a long period of time. So we've kind of boiled it down already for the people that want to purchase leads from a third-party vendor. And that's both for telesales as well as face-to-face. Now, in addition to that, once you join DeFord Insurance Group and you're in our school website for agents, every day on our weekly wins board, there's people posting in their sales. And in addition to that, they're also posting the lead source, right? So again, another layer of verification as far as these vendors have been proven to be successful. Again, right? You're getting that verification, that validation on a regular basis. Now, what we're saying now, something that we've now implemented inside our telesales program and possibly soon in our face-to-face, if we can make that work as well, is the ability for folks to go in there and create their own Facebook ads to an extent, right? These ads are generated specifically for you. You pay a base fee of $500 for the month, and then every other dollar you put in there is going exactly or specifically to your lead spin to generate your leads. And traditionally, like we talked about, leads that you buy third party, because as you can imagine, whatever it costs them, they've got to put a little bit of margin on top. That's how they're a business. That's how they remain successful, right? It's how any business operates. But we're removing that middleman essentially. And so we're generating those leads that are going directly to the agents, and they've gotten their lead spin. And I've seen numbers, and you can maybe verify this for us, Jerry. I've seen numbers in the neighborhood of like $5 to $15 consistently. Some people will pay less than $5. Can you speak to us a little bit about your average cost per lead so far in the program?
Yeah, I've only been in the program for about 3 weeks, and mine are hovering down around $9 or $10 per lead, which that's going to continue to drop down. I've got some high population states I still need to add on. And as soon as I get that verification done, then that cost is going to go down considerably. But when I look at what I was paying for leads before, it was around $17 a lead. I've actually cut my lead cost down in about half.
Wow.
And so the pressure is taken off of me because I know the high intent leads are going to be there. I'm going to be able to have those leads generated specifically for me. The ads are built by our professional Oscar, and it really helps us to focus in on our sales techniques and our training rather than worrying about generating our own lead. I went through a Facebook program and a lot of good information, but somebody my age, the technical aspect of it and the time spent trying to generate my own leads, it was really taken away from my productivity in actual sales. So this was a real blessing for me, and I can't begin to express enough appreciation for what David has done for all of our agents. And some of the agents, like you mentioned, they're getting their leads for around $4.30 each. If they're in the right states and the right number of states, and they've been in the program for a month, now they're really seeing the fruits of their labor, and it really helps them to key in on their sales rather than to worry about where they're going to get leads this week or if they have to generate their own leads and so forth. So I really appreciate everything they've done for us.
Yeah. And, a couple things too, as far as this Alpha Lead program goes, one of the things that I've been aware of is the fact that you actually already mentioned it. Some of these lead vendors, which hopefully are not the ones that we recommend or we're working with, they resell these leads, right? And so they generate the lead one time, it costs them X, whatever that price is, and then they sell it 3, 4, 5, 12 times to try to make money back on top of it. And these people are getting constantly bombarded. So even if you were to get a hold of somebody, and even if you were to close a deal and make a sale with them, the likelihood that someone else is trying to call them and get them flipped to some other deal, right? And I mean, that's a reality. That happens with some of the third-party lead vendors, which you avoid by doing this self-generation method with this Alpha Lead program. The other thing that I want to speak to is the closing ratio. So for most people, if you don't know, if you're buying these third-party leads from lead vendors, you never get to know quite exactly what their lead says. You don't know what the picture says, you don't know what the ad says, and that's obviously for proprietary reasons, because they don't want to give away the secret ingredient to the recipe, right? Otherwise, we'd all just go out there and start running these ads ourselves, right? Good or bad. And so you never quite know. And so there's always been some suspicion as far as what exactly does the lead piece say? Is it alluding to some free government program that's like, very vague? Or you can have a lead that says specifically, hey, find low-cost, affordable life insurance. Like you can imagine, depending on which one of those messages the lead's clicking on, their intent could be higher with one message or another. So can you speak to us, Jerry, what would be like a typical traditional closing percentage of leads, and what have you seen or others seen in the Alpha Lead program?
Well, a typical range, telesales is a lot different than face-to-face. Typically, we're trying to hit between 35 and 50% close rate. And that's typical on this particular situation. But let me give you an example. Like last week, I was able to close at about a 68% rate. And of course, I don't take any of that, kudos, because it's because of the training and the combination of the leads that we're working now, the high intent leads and the training that we're receiving and following through on the training. Last week, I think I had 58 leads came through, and I was able to close over 10% last week. So 10% of that. So that's kind of the goal that we all have as telesales agents. Say if we're getting 100 leads a week consistently, which once we get the program going, we should be able to do that. We should be able to get 10 deals out of that. And so if we maintain that, we're not only going to be successful, but we're going to be making nice money.
Excellent. Yeah. And thank you for sharing those specific numbers as well, because I know for folks that either, again, if they're thinking about getting in the agency or insurance industry, or they're thinking about switching over, like having that kind of goal line, right? The goal in mind of where you want to hit is very helpful for people to kind of measure where they're at. Maybe their agency tracks things differently. But just to clarify, he had mentioned closing ratio, that your goal is about 35 to 50%. And what you mean by that is of the presentations that you complete. Is that right?
Yeah, okay. That's exactly right. Just to verify.
Yeah. So yeah, similar to face-to-face, our goal, a decent agent, not the best, not the worst, on average should close about half of our presentations. So it's a little bit higher, and that's just the advantage, right, of being in person. You just need more at-bats as a telesale person, but you get more at-bats because you're not wasting the time driving around, and your presentations are frankly going to be a little quicker than you would be in the house. So you had said that you had closed about 10% of the total number of leads, right? Whereas
yes,
in
that's
the field,
correct.
yeah. So in the field, our goal is different because we're paying more per lead. We're spending the same amount of money, but we're getting less leads for the same money, right? So our goal as a face-to-face agent is to get in front of or present to approximately half of our leads. So we'd never have 100 in a week. It'd probably be on the most 40, with the low end 20, but on the average about 30. So we're going to give about 15 presentations to the 30 leads. And of the 15 presentations, our goal should be to close about half, to get about 7 sales out of 30. So numbers a little bit differently. But what Jerry would mention was, traditionally speaking, telesales agents out of 100 leads would close. What would be a good number in order to be profitable? What would be a target?
Well, the target would be 10 deals out of the 100 leads. That's the ideal ratio that we would prefer to get to. So,
okay. And what would you say to folks not on the Alpha Lead, if you're buying third-party vendor leads, what is the traditional number? Because I want to say I've heard numbers at like 3 or 5% is kind of typical.
That the typical average agent might be at maybe 4 leads per week that you would close, maybe 5 or 6 if you were really good. And so last week, just to give you an example, out of 58 leads, I closed 7 deals out of 58. And Plus, then I gave one state I wasn't licensed in, I gave it to a friend and he closed that deal. So that was another one of those leads that came through. So actually, 8 out of those 57 deals were closed last week.
That's incredible. The more I talk to you, the more time I spend with you, the more I feel like, man, I'm taking up your time. You need to be on the phone right now with these people. So let's do this. Here's how I want to wrap things up, Jerry. Let's say somebody's out there that, again, they're either thinking about getting into file expense or maybe they're already started somewhere. How would somebody go from where they are today to where you're at? What kind of steps would they need to take as far as, license in multiple states, and kind of give us the walkthrough?
Okay, so my recommendation would be to, of course, David Duford's agency, they have a process. They have an interview process that they have to go through to see, if it's a good fit, making sure that their work ethic lines up with the other agents in the agency and so forth. And through that interview process, if it's a good fit, then they're onboarded. And basically, at that point in time, before then, they pretty much got an idea if they're going to do the telesales or face-to-face. And then we have morning sessions every morning, either face-to-face or telesales for an hour that gives intense training, whichever direction you're going to go. So all the agents are involved in one or the other. But then, on top of that, on the telesales side, we're put in, like I mentioned, we're put into small groups, 3 or 4 or 5 people at the most. And that affords us the opportunity to really work on our craft, to really listen and then to apply. It's up to us to be successful. All the tools are given to us, but it's up to us to do the follow through. And if we do the follow through, along with the work ethic and the activity that goes along with that, then it's the perfect formula to be successful in the industry.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Can you describe, Jerry, what would a typical day look like for you on the phone? Like, how many hours a week are you spending doing this, or how many hours a day are you calling people? Are they calling you? Are they setting appointments? Kind of give us a brief walkthrough on how your day-to-day goes.
Well, because of our CRM program that we have, it allows us to put those ads or the leads out there, the Facebook generated leads, and people are able to book appointments right into our calendar. We don't have to contact them, although we do that some too. But here a while back, I was averaging 7 or 8 self-made appointments using a particular program. And then I start out the day usually around 7:30 Mountain Time. So I can call the leads on the East Coast, okay? After I get all my leads in the Eastern time zone done, then I move to Central. Then an hour later, I move over into Mountain and Pacific by that time. And so it allows me to get in quite a few calls in the morning there. And then a lot of times I'll be working on administrative stuff for about an hour or so. And then I go to the afternoon shift. I can make those same round of calls in the afternoon, and then I take a little break, and then I get back on and make the evening calls. So on the average, I would say about 8 or 9 hours a day. And there's going to be some days that I'm not able to make as many calls. I like to have my weekends off like everybody else, but if I have the opportunity, which I do most Saturdays, Saturday afternoon's an excellent time to get a hold of people. I've closed quite a few deals Saturday afternoon, and I go ahead and go about my business. If there's things I need to do or want to do with my family and so forth, I'm able to do that. If I don't have anything going, I might work just for a couple, 3 hours. And hey, if I pick up a deal or two on Saturday afternoon, then that's great.
Got it. And so how many outbound calls and how many of these are like pre-scheduled appointments of the ones that you're closing? Do you see a better result from one or the other?
Well, the ones that are when they make their own appointments and so forth, I haven't been able to track all of those to really see what the closing rate is, but it really shows high intent on their part. That's they are expecting a call back. And that's why it's so important that we call back within 5 minutes. And they're wanting the product that we have. It's up to us to present in such a way as to make sure that they get that. So I usually make the goal for every day is about 200 calls. And if we're able to make 200 calls, that's 1,000 in a week. Our opportunity to sell is up to us. If we're not making that many calls a lot, well, just like last week, I only made about 400 a little over 400 calls, but I was making deals the whole time. I was writing applications and so forth. So in those, those time periods where you're not, if you've got the calls coming in, you're making the deals, you're not going to get up to that many calls. But a new agent starting out to be successful, the goal should be 200 dials a day or 1,000 a week. So that's what all of us are striving for.
Interesting. And it's so funny to see some of the parallels, like from a face-to-face agent, like you mentioned, you spent some time out in the field as well. It's like, man, I consider a successful day as like getting to 20 doors. If I can knock 20 doors in a day, like, just based on how the numbers work out, like I'm going to have a good day. Or if I get 100 in a week, like I'm going to have a good week. But what ends up happening if your input is your goal, meaning the effort that you're starting with, that oftentimes if you don't reach your input goal, it's because you're reaching your output goal of getting so many presentations or getting so many sales. And obviously, if you're on the phone with somebody or in a house, you're not going to be able to get to all your door knocks, but that's a good thing, right? Because you're actually producing the work and making sales and doing that that way. So that's great. Anything else, Jerry, that we didn't get to cover you want to mention about our Alpha Lead program or otherwise?
I think that about covers it. One thing that really got me on this track is going to YouTube, looking at all the different agencies that are out there, because they all have a little different philosophy as far as how to go about the business, what is successful for them. Some of them have call centers. For some people that works. For myself, that wouldn't be a good situation. But watching all of those different YouTube videos to really fine tune it for what I was looking for, go through them all. And I kept coming back to DeFord Agency, just over and over. The same type of things I was looking for is what was available through the agency. And that's what led me on my path to work with David DeFord Agency.
Excellent, Jerry. Well, listen, man, I'm so happy to hear a success story, and more specifically because Jerry and I were actually, now that I'm being reminded here, Jerry and I actually started off in the same with the same coach, with David Heath, under our broker side for face-to-face. And as Jerry alluded to, it wasn't the right fit for him. Not necessarily that it's a bad way to go. I think everybody's going to have to find that process to figure out what's going to be the best fit for them. So I'm glad to hear, even though it didn't work out for you on the face-to-face as an independent broker, you've been able to have massive success as a telesalesperson. And I got to be honest, it does make it seem like the grass is greener, and it does make us face-to-face people really give second guess to, like, man, am I really doing the right strategy here? But in either way, the thing that Jerry has iterated, and I'll tell you the same, is that regardless of what strategy you choose, like there's an amount of effort, energy, and hard work and time that goes into being successful, right? Everybody always talks about the overnight success that took 30 years. Of course, Jerry's had a number of years, working with people in that capacity before, and he's been in the program for some time and now seeing some massive success. So again, Jerry, I want to congratulate you. Thank you for taking the time to be here with us and sharing this information for people out there who really need it.
Hey, thank you so much, JD. Really appreciated spending some time with you today.
All right, folks, if you guys are interested in joining DeFord Insurance Group, make sure you check the description, the link below. If you're ready to join, you can go ahead and go to daviddeford.com/apply. Or if you want more information, check out that FAQ page. It's going to answer about 99% of the questions that you have about the agency. And should you want to learn more before applying, you always have the option to jump into a group Q&A call where I'll be happy to sit down with you and answer your questions specifically. But once again, thank you, Jerry, and we'll see you guys on the next show.